Okay, it says we are streaming live on YouTube.
It does. So we are just a little bit early, actually.
There she is.
Okay, I'm in.
All right.
So I guess we should just hang out a little bit, wait for people to show up. Tend to do that on the Facebook page for the monthly reading stuff.
So
Yes.
How do we know if there are people watching? It's, I don't know if we do it at all like this the way we can on Facebook.
this is like being in multi-dimensions with many of all of us. Let me get out of this. Why is this making sound?
Sounds like you have a bit of feedback.
It does. I'm trying to find where it is. Close that. I think that should fix it, I think. Dahlia, to answer your question, Corbie, Dahlia is our eyes and ears. She's all that we know about this broadcast is going to come from her.
Okay.
So, let's see.
Putting the deal on the phone.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Let's all do not disturb on Mr. Phone.
And so she'll be able to tell us as people pop on and we start to get viewers.
Okay.
I am not seeing anybody just yet.
We still got 5 minutes, so that's okay. It'll just on playback, they'll get a lot of our shop talk here.
And so we do actually have 3 viewers just checking in saying, hey, Christina Seal. Hopefully I'm saying that right.
King. That's Chef Christy. She's one of my buds down in Atlanta. Hey, Christy.
And we have Kay Bryant.
She's mine.
Okay.
And somebody with the handle Gremlin.
Ooh.
Okay. Don't know if that's one of mine.
All of them are just kicking out hellos. So
wonderful.
Super.
Good.
Got my official tea mug.
You have, oh, yes, you know what? I've got to be honest so that I look at it more often. Mine has pencils and pens in it, right?
Oh, cool. Oh, cool. And the third one I found now belongs to Ula, who is my wonderful tarot student.
This one's mine for the tea for today.
All right, let me see if I can read it. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? I love it. Okay. If we're doing that kind of thing, then my water, look, guys, I'm a geek, I'm a nerd. Starfleet doesn't fire first. That's where we go in this house.
And we have a Julie Lovejoy.
Okay.
She says, hi, Katrina. Maybe somebody, Katrina.
Might be one of mine. I know a few Julies.
Works it. And Cece Moon. And Gladys Gordillo.
Hours. She's our Gladys from Thursday nights.
Yes, Christina's acknowledging she's from Crossroads.
Awesome. That's great. So we will have our official mugs, all of us, next week.
Awesome. Excited. Well, it's 8 o'clock.
Yes, it's time. So welcome everybody to Tea and Crones. We appreciate you being here. Corbie, I didn't switch the pictures the way you like them. So when they're watching you, I am to your left.
That way. No, the left. I'm pointing to the right, so that's fine.
Right.
I got it.
All right. So I'm Katrina Raspold. I am old and I run Crossroads Metaphysical Store. I'm an author, and I could take a long time because I'm very egotistical talking about all the things I do, but that's basically what I do.
Okay. I'll do my 30-second elevator speech. Hello there. As we say in New York, I'm Corbie Midlide. Been doing this since I was 18. I'm almost 66. It's my full-time job, 40 weekends a year, coast to coast and into Canada, and I don't do fluff. When you're 66, you can't really get away with doing fluff because you're too damn smart.
I suppose that leaves me. I am the virtual bridge between our lovely guests that participate and these two lovely, hesitant for me to say crones, but as it were, our elders for the evening. I work as a healer in Woodbridge, Virginia, and I'm here earning my stripes in the elder. I'm sitting at the feet of the elders trying to earn my stripes. So there we have it.
She's modest. We couldn't do this without her, and we have both told her this.
Oh.
So
True. And what's ironic about what she said is that on my screen, and I don't know how this is coming out on YouTube, she's below us. So like sort of
it's Atlas holding us up. Absolutely.
she is the wind beneath our wings.
Oh.
So one of the things that, and now Corbie actually came up with this idea of the two of us having an elders conversation that we invite people into. And I got very excited about it right away because throughout my, if you want to call it magical career, I have always had this eternal search for the mother. I have always looked for that wise mother figure who could give me advice, who could give me critical evaluation of where I was on the path, who could talk to me and gently tell me, you're screwing this up. You need to do this, this, and this. And that was something that I was never able to find. I was always the oldest person in any group. It didn't matter at what time of my life I was in it. I always had but I think because I had so many children, I was always had this younger downline. So I always craved the idea of an elder or a crone in a mindset similar to mine or like mine's who could help guide me. And I never had that. So I got excited about the idea of even virtually possibly being that for someone else. And so when Corbie mentioned this idea, it really sparked something in me that I hadn't felt in a long time, which was to get excited about a project. So I want to say thanks to Corbie. And then she said, I have this gal who does my, when I'm doing my reading, she feeds me the information. And I made this face and I went, oh, I don't want to meet anybody new. And she's just gentled me through it. And she said, whatever it's okay. We'll do it however you want to do it. And I said, oh, all right, I'll do it. And it turned out that her gal was this lovely woman I had just done Olympia on, who I just felt this instant kinship with. And I said, oh, her. And then I got excited about it all over again. So that's my approach to what we're doing here before we even get into the subject, is for the whole project. I have a great deal of excitement, not only for doing it and what it might mean, but for the people I'm doing it with.
Now, as far as finding you, Dahlia Rose, one of my nicknames is the networking fairy. So I always put people together like this, so this didn't surprise me. Interestingly, I'm coming at this whole crone thing from a totally different perspective. I never had kids. I've always been just the biggest kid in the room. When mothers have their teenagers sit down with me, I warn them about that, because I am not going to necessarily tell the kid, oh yes, you have to be cautious in this and that. I'm going to tell the kid, go do it. Go find your life. But on the other hand, as you can see from, it's either a wisdom streak or a skunk stripe, depending on the day. I have been there, done that. Some things I really didn't want to do, but did anyway. Poverty, abuse, divorce, cancer dance 3 times. And here I am, almost 66, and I realize there's more time behind me than ahead of me. If I want to pass on what I know, if I want to help people avoid some of the really class act stupids that I did, It's time to put on the crone crown, own my age, and do what elders are meant to do, which is to help the folks down line, as Katrina says, avoid the pitfalls, be unafraid to find out who they are, and make a difference in the world, because we all have to make a difference before we leave. That's part of the job.
I picture you being this horrible anti-mame that
Why is that?
that I would want for my best friend, which, you know, you are one of my best friends, but would want to keep my, like, far away from my kids.
Well, when they're little guys, rugrats, yeah. But I've always said, when your kids are teenagers and you wanted to stick them in a barrel with a bunghole, that's when I get them. Those are the ones that I love. So no, it's an even give and take, because I know as a teenager, I grew up in a family that was totally medical. Dad was a doctor, mom was a nurse, my brother went to medical school. I was a theater major. I wrote. You know, I got cap danced on the table and recited Shakespeare, and it would have been Omega Brain. They just didn't get me. And a lot of teenagers are like that. People don't get them. So if there is an elder who looks at them and says, nothing is wrong with you and nothing ever was, let's see where you want to go, it will give them some steadiness. And we all need someone who's going to believe in us. There are some people who, if no one believes in them, they can still make it. But there's a part of their heart that has to harden. You got someone who's got your back, you got your crone, you got your elder, then you're not afraid to put out your wings.
I do agree. And it's like having the side of the pool there where you're in the deep end, but you know the side is close by.
Mm-hmm.
So that you have a safe touchstone to go to.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So I thought, because I was really kind of thinking, well, what would we want to do on this first episode? And you and I and Dahlia had some conversations about what that might look like. And I really thought, and you guys endorsed this, I think, or I may have just ran with it, I don't know, that out the gate, we need to define what a crone or an elder is, because there is huge confusion about this in the spiritual landscape. And one of the things that I do with Eric and other people is to run.
Eric is her husband.
Yes, is to run the Pangaya Festival in Fair Oaks every year. And so we constantly work with a huge number of people who identify as pagan, and that is our spiritual community. And one of the things that's really big there is to proclaim yourself to be an elder in a tradition. And so I think what we have here are societal definitions of an elder. We have cultural definitions of an elder that are specific to certain spiritual paths.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into the sociological impacts of things like the fear of aging and the hesitancy to identify as an elder or a crone, and what all of that looks like. So I think that defining crone and elder is going to be a journey here that's probably going to take up a good part of today's conversation. So I wanted to see what both of you thought of that.
I think it makes sense. A lot of people said, "Ooh, why are you calling it crone?" And they were thinking, you know, in Sleeping Beauty, the wicked witch with the nose that met the chin and the warts. And I said, no, that's not what it's about. You're going to age. You are going, if you're female, you are going to end up a crone if you live a normal lifespan. No matter what you do with makeup and Botox and all of that, there's going to be mileage on the car. And you can be afraid of it, or you can be like my father. When they told him that he was going to have a valve replacement in his heart, he just looked at him and said, okay. And my brother and I looked at him and said, Dad, you always freak out with these things. You just said, okay. And he looks at us and said, didn't have a choice. You do not have a choice. You are going to age. And you can either panic about it or embrace it. That's why crone can be honored. It's not a nasty title. It's an honorific, and you've earned it.
And it's definitely superior to the alternative.
Yes.
That's my perspective on it. I, like you, have had a lot of consideration of the amount of time behind me versus however much time is in front of me, because in a year I will have outlived both of my parents. My father died when he was 51. My mother died when she was 60. I will be, no, it's 2 years, because I turned 60 this year and will turn 61 next year.
Okay.
So it's a lot to think about. That what if this is all that there is? What if it stops now? And there is a certain place you reach where when you die, especially now when we're losing so many elders to COVID, when you pass, where people stop saying, oh, she was so young. They just start subtracting their age from yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you start getting to that place where dying isn't out of the thought of what might happen, it's a pretty sobering thing.
It starts to hit you when AARP sends you your membership card at 50. But you still feel young. And then those people look at you and say, oh, would you like the senior discount? You want to slap them, but you'll take the 10% anyway.
I was excited to hit 55 because that's when you can get this on the senior menu at Denny's. Like, I can't wait for this. And then I walked in, a couple of days after my 55th birthday, which was a while ago, and looked at the menu, and the menu's all shit.
That excitement for nothing.
Right. I was amped up. And, well, you can pay less for smaller portions. Isn't this exciting?
Less portions, less flavor,
Yes.
all the things.
Yes. Like, well, you're going to be dead soon anyway. What do you care?
So that's how elderhood, if you will, is treated these days.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. I mean, one of the things I noticed recently is I think we have lost the last of the Navajo code talkers. For people who don't know what they were in World War II. They were the people that kept things running and a code that the Germans could not break. Nobody knows how to do that anymore. That's been lost. So many of the First Nations languages are getting lost. How much of what you know will be lost if you don't put it out there?
One of the things that comes up frequently with me that is a passion of mine is that so many people that I know always wanted to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And there has never in the history of mankind been an easier time to get published. This is the time to write a book if you have a book in you. And I always say, if you have a story, don't die with it untold.
Mm-hmm.
If you have things to say, get it out there. Even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it's not meaningful to you, get it out there. Self-publishing is an easy way to go right now.
Remember, the 7 plots, you're one of them. Whatever you're going to write, you are one of the 7 plots that every book contains.
So get your message out there so that you don't pass with it untold. If you have children, tell them the stories. When my parents died, all I wanted to know was, how did they meet? I woke up in the middle of the night at age 58 trying to think of, how did my parents meet? And they were both dead. I couldn't ask them. I asked my aunts and uncles who ran with them at that time. Oh, we don't really remember. And there was no way for me to find out. So get your history and your story out there to the people who might later be interested in it.
This is where the elder comes in, right? Because traditional schools, they're there to teach them things that the tactile stuff, right? The math, the English, the science, and we don't have those sit down conversations. I remember years ago there being a campaign for people to go back to the dinner table without the television and sit down and have a conversation. And even if it's not that, I look to you guys as, dispensing that knowledge, because it's not just the knowledge, it's what happens. That's what's missing in our teaching communities, why the eldership is so important. It's, I lit the candle and it blew up in my face, or, I shuffled the deck this way and cleared it this way and found the most clarity with my answers. And it's like, well, umpteen number of tarot card readers will spout, or witches will spout what they've done on their channels, but really they've probably only been doing it for a week, 6 months max, and they've got it right twice. And all of a sudden it's gospel. And then when people try to replicate it, it's just not possible. So you guys offer so much in the pitfalls and the successes that's not dispensed. We know we aren't going to get it from school. So
You really hit on something there, Dahlia, I got to admit, it's a pet peeve of mine, and a lot of it is ego driven. I'll say that right up front. But in our pagan community locally, and I don't know that this is an issue, if it's geographical or if it happens everywhere, but we have people that, now I got to say this just right so that I'm not offending anybody, because I really don't mean to. We are fortunate in that our generation, mine and Corbie's, was one of the first ones, and the one just before us, where witchcraft and sorcery and astrology and reading cards was socially acceptable.
Finally.
And so we had Gerald Gardner bringing up Wicca in the 50s and 60s, right as she and I were starting to be human again. But
put our fingers out. Yes.
so we are some of the ones that raised this generation that's now 30 years old and was raised in the craft, or was raised with a mom who does astrology charts or reads palms, or is a conjure woman. So we have these people who have practiced for 20 years or more, 30 years from birth, helping their mom or working with their dad or whatever it might be, who proclaim themselves to be elders in the tradition because they've been doing it for a couple, 3 decades. So they do know a lot about the tradition, but it's not making room for the fact that the title of elder also means life experience. And having lived a few decades and gone a few miles and made a few mistakes, in addition to just knowing the content of the book or how to do this, or this. So it gets to be this really sticky area where you're looking at somebody who's 35 saying, I'm an elder in the Norse traditions. And I'm like, dude, I got cookie sheets older than you.
It's the way it is with a resume. You can say I have, a master's and a PhD, and I can do these logistics, and I did it for 5 years. And then there's this dude who did it for 25 years and only got a bachelor's. And a lot of companies make the mistake of thinking that's good. Let's get the kid with all the paper training. And they are losing the idea of this guy that came up from being a production supervisor and could definitely run the entire plant.
The old dog. Yeah.
Right. That's the kind of thing that I think you're seeing happening. But we've got to put a stop to that.
The other side of that, however, is you don't want to discount the fact that this person has this unique perspective of generational practice and of having 20 years experience or 30 years experience or whatever it might be. So it's hard to find the labels that fit in the different places. And it really is a label game as to what is considered to be an elder and what is considered to be maid mother crone, where that fits in. We all know people who have mother energy who have never given birth. And
Corbie.
they're nurturing the masses. They're nurturing their fur babies. You know, they are giving that mother energy, but they have not physically given birth, and they are still very much a mother. So,
Definitely Corbie.
That's, well, yeah. It's back to the Auntie Mame thing. But it's also that we understand mentorship.
mhm,
One of the things that you have to watch out for with elders, not all elders are perfect and brilliant and wonderful. Okay. One of my favorite sayings, and Dahlia knows it, is mentor yes, guru no. We will push you a little further than you think you can go. We're going to kick you out of the nest before you think you can make it. And as you get better and better, we're going to applaud you.
mhm.
We're not going to see you as competition. Gurus would see you as a competition, but we elders and mentors don't. And Katrina and I had a situation like that recently with a student. And it was a matter of, in the youngsters rodeo, there can be a lot of jealousy. There can be, you shouldn't do this, and I started this. It's the scarcity kind of thinking. We, as teachers and elders, please take what you learned from us and make it bigger. We will put caveats on it. I know that when I show someone my booth at a psychic fair and I encourage them to take everything on there and use the ideas, I just say, but don't use my words, because my words are my drug of choice, and that's plagiarism. But the ideas, the structure, oh, please go and play. That's how we pass it on.
I do agree with that. And one thing that you hit on that I want to circle back around you real quickly, and I want to address what you're saying there as well, is
Mhm.
that just because a person is 70 doesn't mean they're smart.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean that just because someone is an elder, meaning they are an elderly person, that it's somebody you should emulate. It's somebody that you should be your mentor, just by virtue of age. A lot of the people that are the next generation up from where Corbie and I are right now made some of the very critical errors that have our country in disarray right now.
Mhm.
So there's absolutely no denying that. So we must be careful where we give those labels to. Uh, and I wanted to also talk about what you're saying about teachers. That's also something I found to be very cultural. For instance, in the hoodoo community, which I enjoy, conjure is my jam. I love it. It is backstabbing and angry and competitive, and a really horrible place to be if you get deep down into the networking of it.
Mhm.
And I didn't really know that this was when I became a conjure person, because I became a conjure person in a very isolated bubble. I had mentors, I worked with them, I worked with my clients and the community at large. I didn't know about this whole other internet world of conjure for a long, long time. And when
Mhm.
I got into it and found all of these gurus of conjure and hoodoo that I admired, I'd read their book, they were fantastic. I'm reading their message boards, and there's all this infighting
Mm.
and attacking one another brutally. And so I asked one of my mentors, why does that happen? Why would these wise people be attacking each other? When you're talking about take what I taught you and make it more, in that community, a lot of times it's take what I taught you and make that Florida water for me right now. They don't want the people going out and setting up their own shingle, so to speak, because that is then competition. And I asked my mentor, why is that? And she said, it's because other than the Roman Catholic Church, hoodoo is one of the first spiritual, if you call it a spiritual path or magical traditions, that was monetized.
Mm.
And she said that by nature turned it into a very competitive field, because you are then a lot of people that were in that post emancipation um, dysphoria that happened, that
Mhm.
were optimizing in the north the hoodoo products for the people who were displaced. you know, that they were very competitive with each other. That was their bread and butter. And so they were really mean with each other about the I'm rambling, but about
Right.
the sales of that, and that has carried through. The nature of that has carried through.
It's
So
all that different in psychic stuff.
Yeah.
It
sorry.
really is. You know, a lot of people said to me that they were very surprised that I was as open as I was with showing people what I did. But frankly, it's one of the reasons that I don't ever worry about AI taking this over. It's like you can have 6 doctors who are all cardiologists and they all went to Hopkins. Okay. They're going to have different bedside manners. They're going to have different experiences. They are going to have different squints on how to work with a patient. And that's the whole thing. I have been in psychic fairs, 200 booths. I never worry about if Madam Hoo Ha or Swami Swalanda gets somebody, does that mean I won't? Because they're not me. They're not me. And that's the thing that we also want our students to realize. You're going to have a different spin on what we do. You are never going to be Corbie, honey, no matter how hard you try. Do not bother. You are never going to hit Katrina's stride because she is who she is. And all of our life experience are like drops of dye in the water that give us our color. You're going to have something totally different. Don't try and be us. Learn from us and then go be you. And when you do that, there's less of the bitchcraft.
That's because you're authentic. I think people now, Madam Hoo Ha is worried when Corbie gets somebody that she doesn't, because she's not authentic and not confident in what she's doing. And I think that when you see people really obsessed about who is getting what client and keeping score like that, it's because they're insecure about what they're doing. And I don't ever see that in you.
I think one of the things that does plague this, to Katrina's point about the monetization of a cultural element, and then bringing in like the wisdom and things that I've seen with Corbie, is the, not to make this like political or anything, but people are trying to take jobs and bring them into the spiritual realm, and it's not that, you know, there is a component for you both that you bring yourselves, and then the monetization flows, but it is not, and maybe I'm misguided in saying this, but it is not your job. It is who you are, and the compensation that would normally take place in the village for people coming to you all for wisdom is just now a dollar bill or an internet thing. And it's very interesting to see how people apply the cutthroat concepts of the job and corporate
Yep.
to these elements. I mean, Corbie and I have seen it in her live readings as people come in and they comment their business,
And
um,
coach.
and try
Right.
to scam people out of those lives. It's very, very interesting and with no concept of energy or karma. Just, I need to feed into this. I need to hook up and take, as opposed to what the elder brings in. The elder brings everybody together, shares stories, and, you know, we're all around the campfire, and then those stories don't get lost. I think it's very interesting how the people try to merge the two.
And elders, true elders, they're not scared of each other. That's why, you know, I hear what you say about the Huda community. And I don't care how long those people have been there, they may never reach the spiritual aspect of elder if they're still acting like bottom feeders. Katrina, does this make sense to you?
It does, and that gets back to what defines an elder, and it's really more of a way of being. Um, it's certain hallmarks you have to hit to be there. I believe, in addition to age. Something I want to speak to about Dahlia that is very important in any conversation regarding magic, especially when energy transfer is involved, whether it's money or barter or whatever it might be. When you're talking about the difference in this is who you are versus this is your job, in my case, this is what I do, this is all that I do. But the difference is you can't just decide, well, I need a job. What do I want to do? Do I want to be a dog groomer? Or do I want to be a spiritual leader? You know, do I want to be a professional or a plumber? I don't know. You know, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that. It's a calling that happens. It's often something that you fall into by accident and it becomes you. Like you said, you can never go into this with the objective that you're going to make money. That's the fastest way to fail. You can
Mhm.
go into this and say, I'm going to do this. And then suddenly it takes over your life and you realize it is sustaining you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
And spirit will also wait and see what you're good at and have you cleared your stupids.
so you can't go into it with this being the objective.
Mhm.
It's as though the spirituality is the objective. The rest of it builds around it. And that's exactly what happened with me and Eric. And we could not have forced our life to be the way that it is. It had to happen. And it was a total surrender thing of this is who I am. I have to give into this. Oh God, I hope there's a net to support me.
We
Yeah.
have an excellent comment here from somebody whose handle is Puma, mentioning the student of any gifted psychic spiritual teacher must folk process what they learn and apply it to their own working and spiritual growth. And I think that is, to Corbie's point and to what Katrina is explaining, is having to work through your own stuff
Mhm.
to be of service to the community. So it's even, your eldership giving us the feedback to say like, hey, we walk this path and these stones really will stick in your heel, but keep going.
That's so true. And it's such an ongoing process. It's not as though you hit elder and all your shit is suddenly worked out because you're an elder. Uh,
Right.
you're continually working on your own stuff. And when I was talking about Corbie, and one of the first things that appealed to me when I met Corbie was her authenticity. And
Same.
that's absolutely a requirement for me, not only for um, a peer and a mentor, but as a friend, is that you're digging deep in there and showing me who you are on an authentic level. And I think that any quality teacher has to do that because you can't sell what you have not yourself experienced and processed. And so you can't teach what you haven't
Mastered.
through your own experience.
Yeah. Now, oh, sorry, Corbie.
Nope. Nope. Go ahead, Dania. What?
We had a comment from Puma again. Thank
Mhm.
you, Puma, for being so engaging. And I thought it would be interesting to approach. She talks about the student selection process, and I'm sorry if my pronouns are incorrect, Puma. That the student selection process becomes a serious matter of being able to find the right student to connect with and life situations where you can teach the student effectively. How do you all approach that? Maybe Corbie, I know you have somebody that you work with.
Okay, fine. I'm going to tell you who Puma is. Puma is one of my oldest and dearest friends. He is, how we all have those handful of people that you'd go to the wall for and you trust them with your open entrails. That's my Puma. So, all right. So the question was, how do you pick a student?
Yeah, well, he's commenting that it's becoming a delicate selection process, making that connection. So what are you all's thoughts on connecting with your students? Do you have a selection process? How do you feel that?
I
I've
have,
First, Katrina.
I
Then
do. I ran into this probably about 3 years ago when I started teaching on a more open level rather than just one-on-one connections. Prior to this, I taught mostly in either enormous auditoriums or apprenticeship situations. I didn't have an in the middle. And about 3 years ago, I started doing classroom classes where I would have maybe 10, 20 students. And it got to the point that I did have to start a selection process, which I knew meant just because of space and time. I knew I was going to have to pare down who I chose. And so I came up with a series of questions that I would put to people who wanted to work with me. And they were things like, what's your prior experience? What do you think this, about this particular path that we're embarking on, all sorts of questions, but I really only paid attention to the last question, which was, why do you want to do this? And if it didn't relate, I would decline. And I do decline students. I'm not one of these people that believes that I have to teach everybody who comes to me and asks. There are some teachers who do that, and I admire that they do that, but that's not me. I am very selective about who I teach. And so it's going to be a matter of my comfort with them, their receptivity to what I'm teaching, whether I feel like they're a good fit for whatever I happen to be teaching. There are a lot of things that go into me choosing a student.
I'm totally different. First thing is my bullshit tolerance meter can't go off. If it does, you at the door. I'm not someone who teaches classes per se. I mean, I do have like 3-hour workshops, Sentence of Passion, Decadence, that kind of thing, but I always prefer being a facilitator and letting the class interact with each other and teach each other. And I'm up there having a great time. When I lecture, I'm half lecturing, half stand-up comedian.
Me too.
The people's stuff, they lower their shields, this stuff gets in. But every once in a while, I will click with someone that I am willing to work with that way. At this point, 3. One of them is a woman up in Canada who was my client for some time. And I am mentoring her through setting up her holistic business and how she works with life. One of them, in a sense, is the woman at, here with us in white. It's not a formal teaching kind of thing, but it is a mentorship. And the only person I have really, really started formal teaching with is a brilliant young teenager around here. I'm very good friends with her family. And even at 13, 14, she has a sense of how to read. She has an intuitive sense and underhearing. I think she's going to be one of the best in the business when she's older. And she wants to be, not for the money, but because she knows that's her gift and how to help others. You come in with that, you betcha I'll teach you.
One of the things that I've really been blessed with is we started out with our spiritual circle, which was Wiccan-esque, but it actually was cusp tradition, which is climbing up the spiral pathway. That's a tradition that Eric and I started, in 1997, and wrote a book about. It honors the 8 Sabbats of Witches and creates a framework for positive life manifestation every year. So you plant in spring what you want to change in your life, you harvest it in the fall. And it's a fantastic tradition, but during those, we had our circle for over 20 years. And during that time, we had very strong high priests and high priestesses come out of that circle and go out and start their own cusp groups. And it was very exciting to have happen. And the gal who we passed it to, Figui, now does those rituals here at our shop and does them on her own with her magical working partner, Erie. And it's incredible to watch her do the cusp rituals and put her own spin on it and it's this grandchild feeling, of just seeing that legacy continue, and know that she's going to continue to do that, and she will train people and take on her own students. And that was exciting. 3.5 years ago, I started the first Brujeria classes in the Sacramento area, and took on, I think it was 19 students at that time. And that was only because we couldn't hold more. And that was after the selection process. Those students are now 3.5 years later, the seniors of the class that are mentoring the incoming students. And we are down to, I want to say, 7 or 8 students that stuck with it for that long. And we have a saying that is Brujeria chooses. And that is that it chooses who will be drawn to it. It chooses who will stay and who is invested in it. And that's been really exciting, because these are, I say kids, these are kids that they're adults that I've taught for 3.5 years now, that I've watched grow as witches, grow as healers, grow as fantastic conjure workers. And it's phenomenal. They are the ones that I would now go to with my issues if I needed help. So definitely we reach that place where the student surpasses the master, which is always what we want to see for the evolution of the path.
Yes. Even if the student goes on a different path. When I was in my late teens, early 20s, I worked with Blue Star in New York, and my high priestess was Tzipporah Katz, and I drove her crazy. I did, because I knew that I had all of this stuff inside and wanted it out and wanted to work with it. And in those days, it was power for power's sake. I was 19, 20. I had no brains. And eventually it was, a split. Some 40 years later, we are back, very close friends. And she has said she's proud of me to see where I went, but I could not have done it in a strict lineage. And no, I'm not a witch. I'm a hedge priest, baby. I go where I'm needed to do what I need. But what she taught me can still be passed on to the people I work with. You may not get a piece of paper and you may not have your specific stuff. Well, I checked all of this off. But those of you out there who are elders, just because you don't have that checklist, please do not think that you're not making a massive difference to the youngsters. I'll call them youngsters. You don't know where they're going to go. But if there is a truth to the spark that you saw, they'll come around. They will make you proud, and they will make a difference in the world based on what you taught them, even when they didn't want to hear it. Please trust that.
Absolutely with that. And a lot of times, even if we are not there to see it, if we don't circle back around and have that reconnect, our hope is that they then pay it forward and just continue the momentum that happens.
Yes.
One of the things, I was talking to a person who is on the brink of that elderhood that I adore, Jason Lindo, who's one of our Crossroads family. He has a unique perspective. Not only is he Jewish, but he's also from Hawaii. And of course, that is a culture unto itself, magically, religiously, and just day-to-day life. And I was talking to him about what we're discussing tonight, and he had some interesting insight. And one of the things he mentioned is that in our society here, one of the biggest challenges we have is we do not have a structure in society for what happens when, or when you transition, so to speak. And he said that in Hawaii, that there are different stages. You are the Opio from youth to marriage. You are the Makua from adulthood into your crone or sage time. And then you are Kapuna when you are crone or sage. And that this is an understood structure that's in place, so that when you are Kapuna, when you're in your crone and sage place, because you are at the last part of your life, you are considered to be closer to the veil, so to speak. And so your responsibility is to stop working and to hear those messages from beyond the veil and to share that wisdom with the downline. And they're having a problem now because Hawaii has become more Americanized,
Mm-hmm.
so that they're losing those definitions. And one of the aunties, because the elders are called aunties and uncles there, had said they want it all. You know, they want your wisdom, but they also want you to keep working. And one of the big conversations in the United States right now is that of Social Security and who's paying into it. Will it be there when you need it? When do you retire? When do you stop working? Do you have an exit plan? Do you just keep working until you drop dead? You know, we don't have those delineations anymore. And in fact, our Social Security was created at a time when people usually didn't live past 65.
Mhm.
And now we have what's called the gray tsunami of the baby boomers aging out. So more than ever, we have an unprecedented number of people who are over 65
Mhm.
and still kicking it, still having a high quality of life, which changes the face of what you would call the elderly in America. So I wondered what either of you had to say about the definitions that exist for us in America or lack thereof. And should a person, how do we deal with this unprecedented screwed up economy that causes people in their 80s to still have to work?
Mm.
A lot of it is what is valued. Women in America, once you hit menopause, you are marginalized, you're mocked, you're a victim, you're not seen. And so a lot of women, even if they would be okay with their savings and Social Security, they continue to work because at least there they perceive that they have some value. One of the reasons that I started doing this when I was in my late 40s in terms of a full-time business is because I was an executive recruiter. I watched women thrown on the dung heap at 50, and I said, by God, I want something that I love to do and that I can do on my deathbed if I have to. So when you have to work 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, which people do, you're an associate at a law firm, you're told it's 100 hours a week or don't even bother interviewing. When do you have time to develop the deeper parts of yourself?
Right.
When do you have time to walk the road so that when you hit the elder's age, you have something to give? You have the experience. If all you know is work, then hitting elderhood is terrifying because then you think you have nothing. So you keep working. So there are no elders. We're a rarefied bead. We're becoming extinct unless you grab hold of the elderhood and say, this is part of who I am and I will not allow it to be killed or snuffed.
Something I saw, Corbie, I have 6 kids and they range in age from 21 to 42. And so I had a lot of experience with other parents and getting to know them and seeing what they were doing. And also through the counseling that I do now, talking to people whose children have now left home, something I see is that a lot of women specifically invest heavily into raising their children, to whether they're working and raising kids or just raising kids, to the point that they do not create any place for themselves to go when their children have gone on and have the life of their own. So it's as though they forgot who they are because they were so immersed in their children's lives that once their children are gone, they don't know who they are. They don't know what they like to do. They don't know how to want or how
Yes.
to need and express those things in their lives that they need because they've been so immersed in the needs of others for so long that kind of died off in them. And so what happens is they become super helicoptered over the lives of their adult children. And if I could give anybody advice, it would be, yes, get in there and nurture those babies and love those kids and be a hands-on mom, but take the time to do things for yourself, to
Absolutely.
get to know yourself, know who you are, so that at the end of it, you still feel like you are your own person. It doesn't hurt any less when they leave. You still feel that lack and that longing and that sadness, but you still have continuity of self, so that when you're going into that point of elder, you're not having to recreate something, you're continuing something.
The other thing to remember, fact of life, most women outlive their spouses. They do. So at the end of your life, you need to go back to who you were at the beginning of your life. This is not saying second childhood, but this is saying if you remember who you were, then you can renew her with a different coat, a different fire, but it's still who you are at core. If
What
you buy into the whole, it's all about giving to everybody else, you're going to be a husk because you will have not fed your own fire.
when I was doing my PhD work, one of my minors was in gerontology. And I was always amazed when people become old and are surprised. You know, they haven't made any end of life arrangements. They haven't thought about where they want their material possessions to go, how they want to be buried, any type of consideration for that. And so they get to a place where they can't make those decisions anymore, and all that's left to the family. One of the things as we age as an elder that's essential is that we take that burden from our children or from our spouse or whoever might be making those arrangements for us, or hopefully not our parents, and lay out exactly what we want done and how we want it done and be very specific. And another thing that fortunately a lot of elders are doing to ease that transition is they're downsizing. I'm a major hoarder, but I'm a classy hoarder because it's all in a shed. It's not in my house.
Okay.
But if my kids went out to those 3 sheds and looked at those boxes, other than the things that were theirs from school or whatever it might be, they have no clue. They don't know what the meaning to me was of those items. And so a lot of elders are now downsizing, moving into smaller places, purging out some of these things, giving items to their children or to their friends or to their siblings that might be relevant to them, so that it's not as much of a burden on the people who are going to be planning their end of life.
Yes. It's interesting to be married to a museum director because he keeps things. He has lots of his family things, and he's realizing we have no one to give them to. So he's beginning to downsize that. My life was so roller coaster, no breaks, that, if I haven't used in a year, it's gone. Some of that I regret, but it means that what's around me is what's important. And when you do that, elders, and instead of 250 things, there are 25 for your kids to deal with, those 25 things will be cherished because they will be the ones they saw all the time that are full of the memories. Like my mother's silver plated green bean dish from, years of Thanksgivings. No, she didn't leave me, tons of stuff. She left, that's one of the things though, and there's meaning. So this is a case where more is not better.
And
That's,
identify that. That's the trick, is say, this was my mother's silver green bean dish.
Mhm,
We
mhm.
had generations of Thanksgiving with this, so that whoever receives it knows the story and the legacy behind it.
Yes.
Now, ladies, I wonder if we could gently circle back.
Mhm.
Um, a dear Gina here was wondering, maybe, and maybe this isn't a circle, maybe it does flow into the context. We were
Yeah.
defining elder. And she wanted to know your thoughts on the difference between an old soul and an elder, because some people have amazing wisdom at a young age. I think you guys did touch on that, but the word old soul gets thrown around and then people drop to their knees and, well, you're bringing through the wisdom that Katrina mentioned, as you start to retire and have to listen to messages, and it's like, wait, you don't even know how to tie your shoes, or you're still a
Yes.
baby.
Yes.
So I wonder if you all could address that part of the difference between old soul and elder.
One of the pleasures I have in what I do, running a metaphysical store. So we're here 5 days a week, 50 hours a week, dealing with the public coming in. Here's what I want to tell you. Everybody's kid is an indigo child.
Oh, I default.
Everybody's kid is a little star seed, precious little star seed. Oh my God, they're so smart. You wouldn't believe how intuitive this child is. This child has past life recollection that you would not believe. This child can move coffee cups with his mind. I mean, everybody's kid is special. Let's start with that. And everybody's kid is an old soul. Now, there are actually old people that I look at and say, yeah, you're an old soul. It feels like you've been around the block a few times. You've got a handle on it. I, I still got to go with mileage. I hate to put it on that, but even if you're an old soul, you're in a baby body.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they've got to stay in the military. They have delineation, which is time in grade and time in service. So the time in grade is how long did you hang out being a tech sergeant versus how long have you been in the military? So,
Mhm.
in my case with Old Soul, it's okay, you might be an old soul, but how long you been here?
Mhm. And what have you done with that old solitude,
Mhm.
kids? That's if somebody comes along and says, I'm an old soul, so my aura don't stink. I'm sorry, I cut them off the knees. I have no patience with that.
Get the hair. Here's the hair. You go, uh-huh. Oh,
No. I use my two favorite phrases, which you've both heard. Thank you for sharing. You may think that if you wish, but I ain't buying it. So, but the whole point is, if you're an old soul, it doesn't mean you're going to be smart. Some old souls come down to play for their last one or two incarnations, and they are absolute idiots
hmm.
because they've been there, done that, sold the franchise, and they want to go out to recess for the last period of school. So old soul means nothing.
And this isn't to ridicule old souls. Some old
Not at
souls
all.
are really cool. And some of our greatest teachers are teachers because they have been old souls. But the same rule applies to old souls as applies to anything we've been talking about tonight. And that
Yes.
is that if you're a true elder, if you're a true old soul, if you are a true crone, you don't have to scream it and claim it and broadcast it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be obvious and apparent,
Yep.
and people are going to respond to that light.
True.
Thank you.
As Puma said, sometimes an old soul is just a retreaded tire.
Oh,
So, so we've had a good first hour, I think.
Yeah,
So
lots of
hopefully
great things.
you guys out there have enjoyed it. Please leave comments. What you like, what you didn't, what you'd like us to talk about. All of this is important to us, especially if we want to continue this week after week after week. We need your input, my darlings. So,
like
right
other YouTubers, we will reply. We
yes,
talk to you. All three of us are going to be monitoring the YouTube channel. We will reply to you. We'll talk to you. We care about what you think. And we have not yet decided. Spirit will lead us on what to talk about next week. We will announce it before Wednesday or so on our tandcrones.com page and on our Facebook.
yep,
So we'll tell you what our topic is going to be. But we will respond to your questions and comments, absolutely. So a couple of things I wanted to say. My friend Rob Abbott, I screamed loudly throughout several of my other live streams that after this, he was going to be on Facebook's doing readings. I know he was in the ER this morning with kidney stones. I don't know if he is still going to be doing the live stream or not. If he is, get over there and get your channel live stream because he's amazing. Mystical Mojo, it's linked from tncrones.com under Crone approved links. We have a class coming up on our Facebook page on Saturday. That is a candle class that Gladys Gordia and I are teaching, 6 o'clock Pacific time. Facebook/Crossroads Occult. And I'll put the link in the description of this video as well. Corbie, have you got anything coming up?
Let's see. Once a month, I always do my free reading hour, and you're going to go see that over on my Facebook page, which is Fire Through Spirit. We specifically did not want to do readings here. We want to talk to you. We're going to have conversations. You want to find out, does Bruce love me, or when am I going to get a job? That's the free reading hour. She does witches at the Crossroads every Thursday evening at 7 or 8 p.m. Pacific.
7 Pacific, and that's also facebook.com/Crossroads Occult.
So,
And we have these links in the comment section if you didn't catch the slashes. And don't be afraid to hit us up either here on the YouTube channel in the comments. There is also a Facebook page, a website. Feel free to give us some feedback, guys. We'd love to see it.
You can't avoid us. You really can't. So.
Now, something I wanted to touch on real quickly, Corbie, just in case we have some of your regular Fire Through Spirit reading people here. You had an announcement that came out that I want to make sure that they got, and that was that you got slammed hard on past. Do you want to talk about the new policy you've had to put in place?
Yes. My darlings, you know that I want to make everybody happy. And it used to be okay, I could do that. But we got, Dahlia, how many was it? 150 or so people who wanted readings at the last one. And y'all broke the internet. Facebook, the comments were so fast that they would skip over, and Facebook does not always allow us to reach back and get them. So the dealio is now, please, one, put your question in once, not 3 or 4 or 5 times. We will get to you if we can. It's pretty much the electronic luck of the draw at this point, whether Facebook shows us your question or not. As Katrina says, it's the line from Hunger Games, may the electronics ever be in your favor. The other thing we want to warn you about, please, if at any time when I'm doing that reading, somebody else goes in and says, I have a feeling I must read you, that's poaching, no honorable, professional intuitive would ever go into somebody else's feed and try to siphon off their people. And I guarantee you, these are the kind of people that when you talk to them, they'll go, oh, you have a family curse. How many in your family? 4, you have dog. And they're going to charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get rid of the blockages or take off the curse and you can't come back to me and say, why didn't you tell me? Because I'm just telling you. Okay. I will never object to your going to another psychic. I send you to Katrina. I send you to my buddy Stacey Wells. But you see somebody poaching like that, I guarantee you are going to be a hurting puppy if you answer them.
Yep.
This is pretty commonplace on Instagram and Facebook for those types of individuals. I do want to comment because some people will fight back and say, well, they were accurate. They read something about me and I needed to pay to get more. What you are looking at is people with gifts that are misusing them. And using them to manipulate you emotionally. So they usually look for the hole in your aura, plug right into that, and tap in. I myself have been told I was cursed several times, and that I could never remove it. But I had I have two elders here that have helped me through. And if you get told such a thing, first Corbie can decipher that for you with her cards and be very clear and very accurate and very kind in that motherly auntie way. And I've had Olympia with Katrina, and I felt like a whole new person afterwards. So, and they're not pulling you in, they're not manipulating you in the way that these people are. So if there's fear involved, run.
Mhm.
That's true.
Absolutely.
Also
Thank you.
remember that, for instance, Corbie and I both do our readings on Facebook. Me through Witches at the Crossroads, Corbie through Fire Through Spirit. When you comment and, for instance, leave your question, that puts your Facebook profile on the feed. So these people can click there and get a lot of information about you.
Mhm.
So you want to just be careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for being here, for joining us on our not maiden voyage, it's our crone voyage of
Perfect. Perfect.
tea and crones, which Gladys calls seasoned scones. But it's been a pleasure. We will announce by Wednesday or so what our topic for next Sunday will be, but our anticipation at this time is that we will be having the live stream right here, right where you found it this week, every Sunday at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. We're all three expecting to be here. We look forward to spending more time with you.
Have a great week, my friends. Stay safe. See you soon.
Can't